Oral histories in parts of Senegal or Mali describe borrowed bodies used by wandering entities that can't reincarnate. Instead of receiving a standard birth and soul, these bodies act as placeholders until the entity finally departs. This scenario differs from straightforward possession tales, where a normal person is overtaken. Instead, the narrative implies that a body was vacant from the start, ready to be used by an external force. Some local law compares it to having a house without a permanent resident. The structure stands intact, but there's no genuine occupant driving free will or authentic emotion. Certain Native American stories also flirt with the concept of soulless beings. A few tribes refer to blank ones or hollow men, individuals who appear normal yet exude an unsettling emptiness in communal gatherings. Tribal elders in these stories often treat them as omens or bad medicine. While some anthropologists interpret these accounts as allegories of lost identity or disconnection from tradition, old storytellers suggest a literal absence of the spiritual essence required to share in communal rites. The blank one might speak and move like everyone else, but it doesn't form the genuine bond of spirit that unites the tribe. Several modern researchers catalogue these tales to highlight shared motifs: the removal or absence of a core soul, a body that functions but lacks the internal flame, or an external force animating something otherwise dormant. The question arises whether each culture independently invented a similar metaphor, or if they're describing a phenomenon that different societies interpreted through their own spiritual frameworks. Listen up, because this next angle cranks the intensity to a whole new level. There's a theory floating around that everything you see, your house, your job, the sky, and even the people you chat with, could be part of a massive programmed environment. We're talking about simulation theory, the brainchild of thinkers who argue our entire reality might be an advanced simulation engineered by a hyper-intelligent civilization. Under this paradigm, the notion of backdrop people, or NPCs, becomes more than just a side note. It fits right into a scenario where not everyone you interact with is a fully conscious participant. Some could be sophisticated background code, designed to fill out the environment much like computer-controlled characters in your favorite video game. Much of the hype around simulation theory stems from a famous thought experiment. If civilizations continue advancing technologically, it's plausible they'll develop simulations so intricate that the simulated entities believe they're in a real, organic world. Proponents say the odds are ridiculously high that we're already in one. Here's the kicker: if that's the case, not every character needs to be rendered with the same level of detail. Just like in a game, certain characters have high-resolution features when the player interacts with them, while others remain in a simplified form until they are needed. Extrapolate that idea, and you've got a blueprint for how backdrop peoples might function within a simulated reality, perfectly lifelike on the surface, but lacking any real consciousness because the code doesn't demand it. Glitches in the system often come up in these conversations. You've probably heard stories: someone observes a bird frozen mid-flight, or sees two identical strangers with matching outfits and mannerisms standing right next to each other, oblivious. Online forums brim with photos and videos where reality seems to momentarily falter. Most of these get dismissed as hoaxes or camera errors, but simulation theory enthusiasts see them as cracks in the facade. They argue that real conscious players notice these anomalies, while NPCs remain untroubled, carrying on their routine as if nothing happened. It's reminiscent of a video game crowd. They look busy at first glance, but pay closer attention and you notice they loop the same limited actions or dialogues. Another phenomenon linked to this conversation is the Mandela effect, where large groups of people remember an event or detail differently than how it's documented today. Some say it's just the malleability of human memory, but others see it as evidence of software updates to the simulation. Backdrop people adapt seamlessly, while a handful of conscious observers recall the previous version. This concept gets amplified by modern-day speculation about quantum computing and parallel realities. Some fans of the simulation idea argue that these odd memory discrepancies hint that we might be witnessing system-wide changes in real time. Then there's the question of how advanced a civilization needs to be to run a simulation of this scale. Advocates of the theory point out that our own technology is racing forward. Virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and procedural generation are just scratching the surface. If our future selves or some alien intelligence created these simulations, they could orchestrate entire digital universes with billions of simulated individuals, only a fraction of whom would need authentic consciousness. Backdrop people become resource-saving measures. They fill the environment with realistic behavior, never requiring the complexity or processing power that conscious minds would demand. Critics balk, insisting this all sounds like a sci-fi fever dream. Yet the simulation concept has been championed by certain high-profile tech and science influencers, fueling public fascination. When you combine the speculation around advanced computing power with the idea that not everyone we see is truly awake, you get a potent blend of suspicion and wonder. The theory resonates with those who sense something off about daily life, who feel that certain individuals seem a bit too mechanical, unperturbed, and caught in repetitive cycles. Eastern spiritual traditions contribute a whole different flavor to the idea that not every human being is endowed with the same level, or even the same kind, of conscious essence. Rather than framing it as a question of soul versus soulless, many Eastern teachings describe layers or gradations of awareness, implying that some individuals barely register beyond the material plane. In certain branches of Hindu philosophy, there's a focus on the interplay between Purusha, pure consciousness, and Prakriti, material nature. While general interpretations insist every human has an Atman, the eternal soul, minority commentaries suggest that some beings never attain a realization of this inner self, effectively functioning on autopilot within Prakriti. They might follow rituals, social norms, and biological imperatives without accessing the deeper layers of consciousness.